lovely. I never get tired of watching that. I love the voices, and we watch that with children a lot. I'm very fortunate in working with a lot of school groups every year. I'm usually the ARP one, but it usually stimulates a lot of conversation, about how people are dressed, their hairstyles, the experience, the work that they did, things like that. Reminds me a lot of my own mum. I wasn't born during the war. I missed it by not very long. My two sisters, though, were born in 1942 and 1943. My mum didn't work as a land girl. She worked in an aircraft factory in Leeds. My best mate, his mum worked in a steel factory in Sheffield. And I'm reminded, there's a lot of individual stories, a lot of these stories, and we have to work so hard to preserve them and to make sure that they're not lost and to give people a voice. I say that sadly some of the ladies on that video are no longer with us. But even meetings like this, even what we're doing tonight, this is important stuff. This is important what we're doing. I know it's a Monday evening and we're just having a nice chat, but it is important work that we are doing. We are helping to keep these memories, keep these stories alive, and to continue sharing them. And we have a responsibility down to the next generations to do that, really, to do that to the best of our ability. And I will commend you for the efforts which you are doing already to do that. Final couple of points before I shut up and go over for questions. We've been talking about lessons learned and things like that. Percentages of foodstuffs which are imported to this country. We've actually made a little bit of progress. You may know this already, but we are now home producing 55% of our foodstuffs that we consume, which is better than it was. In terms of land usage, 60% of the land area of the country is still dedicated to agricultural food production. But in terms of percentage of the population which actually is directly employed in agriculture, it is now at its lowest ever, and it is down around or below the 2% of the population is engaged directly in that work. And the average age of farming communities at the moment, the average age of someone who describes himself as farmer and works on farmer is 59. That is the highest age that it has ever reached. My final little shot also is a little example of some of the wry humour that went amongst the land girls. To help promote a spirit of community, the land girls had a magazine called The Landswoman, and girls used to send in recipes and sewing patterns and things like that, and cartoons, and there were some very, very good cartoonists who were land girls. And my favorite land girl cartoon, I keep threatening to get a picture of this and put it up, but it's I've got some copyright problems. There is a cartoon which appeared on the back page of the Landwoman magazine in 1945. And it's a picture of a young land girl leading a cow, a very docile looking cow, along the lane, and she meets the vicar coming in the other direction. And the vicar says, "Oh, hello, young lady there. Whereabouts are you taking the cow?" And the land girl says, "Well, I'm taking the cow to the bull, your reverence." And the vicar says, goodness me, isn't that something that Farmer Brown should be attending to? And the land girl says, and you can probably guess it, "Oh no, your reverence, it has to be the bull." And on that, I will throw back to Chris. I will thank you very much indeed for your attention. I hope I haven't lulled you off to sleep too much. And I'm quite happy to take questions. If I'm able to answer them, I will do. If it's something that I need to go away and look up, then I will pass the answers back via Chris or whoever as soon as I can. So thank you very much indeed for your attention. Chris, the floor is yours.
Mike, the video that you showed,
yes,
it struck me very much in a similar way to the way that the rollout of the vaccine has gone, with everybody pitching in and the numbers getting larger and larger. It seemed to have that same sort of feel in a way. Is that how you would see it?
Over this last kind of 12 months, really, thinking back to this bizarre 12 months. I mean, I keep coming up against my memories from 12 months ago on Facebook and things like that, and I've been struck very often by the parallels between our experience now and the experience at the start of the war, and also the differences as well. I think it's given me a new perspective on people's experiences in 1939, 1940. And of course, in my case, it was for my parents. And yet, I think we don't particularly. We've had this looming over us, and many of us will know people who we've lost to COVID. But there is that lack of imminent danger, I think. Although there are parallels, I wouldn't want to push them too far. For instance, I've not had to worry about sending my own two lads off to face the dangers that people had to deal with back then, and my domestic routine has been, comfortable. There is a lot to learn, I think, for us looking back. And of course, we will have our own lessons to learn from this COVID thing ourselves. But they are quite different, I feel. They are quite different.
But there was a kind of similarity in the way that the country bumbled along, not bothering to think and plan ahead, assuming that life would continue as it always had. And that was in a way similar to, I think, December, January, before the virus really kicked in.
Yes.
There was similarity in that respect. And yet, when things, or when it became clearer how bad things were going to be, the country has sort of galvanized in a way that it did in the wartime, I think. But there are similarities and differences, I think.
Yeah, I think they're both circumstances merit contrast, and there's a lot to learn from it, I would say.
Anybody
it's
else
been a flipping awful year, I can tell you that much. I don't want to go through another one of these. It's been bad enough. There we go. Sorry, anybody? Questions?
Questions, anyone?
Yeah, I've got one if I may.
Alan.
Yeah, Mike, thank you very much. Thoroughly enjoyed that.
Thank you very much.
Couple of points first.
Yep.
Your ditty about the bull and the cow. They did that on the Carry On film, Carry On Camping. If you remember that, Charles Autry did it. I think it was in Carry On Camping. So yeah, I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Right, I'd forgotten that one. I must get that.
Yeah, I think it was Carry On Camping. I think it was.
It certainly sounds like it. Could be any one of them. Yeah.
And going about the land, the production. I understand Boris said just before Brexit that he wanted a committee or a group to get together to inquire about getting more land for production, so we produced more of our own food, etc. after Brexit was all over. So was that correct? I think I might be correct in hearing that.
It remains something of a political football. It stands the current state of food production versus imports is, as I was saying, it's about 55% at the moment produced home, and about 26% is direct import from states within the EU. There is always this drive to become more self-sufficient, and I think certainly there is the potential to produce greater quantities But in terms of agricultural policy, at the moment, the farming community is still being left something in kind of like a no man's land, still waiting to get a firm answer, firm policy on how subsidies are to be managed and what incentives are to come forward. Many of the farmers I know are, I do know a lot, are very keen to undertake greater production to play the part, but they're not quite sure exactly how that is going to be incentivized and whether they're given the tools for the job at all. So at the moment it remains, and I've got to say, I mean, COVID certainly hasn't helped. It couldn't have come at a worse time, really. I mean, we all know that. But over this next sort of 18 to 24 months, I'm afraid that probably agriculture is going to remain something of a political football. It's not quite in such a difficult strait, perhaps, as the fisheries, that other great branch. But a lot of people are struggling. They are not committing to some of the investment that would be required in capital and land development. So it's I don't know, it's a difficult time. It's a difficult time.
My question was going to be, if you know, these girls, they're only being paid 2/3 of the men's wages. When they were in these lodgings, in hostels being put up, did they have to pay for their own lodgings and food out of their pay?
Yes.
So
yes, they did. It was quite carefully regulated, though. Wherever the girls were, their pay was it was fixed, and there were only certain deductions were allowable up to a certain point. Again, there was obviously an enforcement was required behind it, but they were dealt quite fairly. They were handled quite fairly. After, of course, that thing of saying, well, there's 2/3 of a man's pay, but it was carefully monitored. And another great thing, a point which I should have emphasised. The girls themselves were very specifically classed as being outdoor workers. They were not to be used at all for work such as, for instance, working inside on cooking, cleaning, things like that. They were outdoor workers, and that was monitored very closely. And of course, the land girls could be taken away from a farm. And there are numerous cases of disputes which are illustrated through the files of, let's say, Winifred Jacob Smith from York and Knaresborough is the one I know best. But where Winifred Jacob Smith actually withdrew girls from farms because they were not being used for the right purposes. And she used to make a habit, or practice, I should say, of dropping in on farms unexpectedly to see where the girls were and what they were doing. So their pay was fixed, deductions were available, but they had to be done within certain limits, and the work that they were involved in was also being regulated. So it was a well-run service.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Could I ask something?
Sharon.
Yeah. If you've got a relative that you know was in the Land Army, is there any way you can get records at the moment? But because I'm thinking like the 100 years thing, you know, if it was a Second World War, it might not be available till 2025 or something.
No, as far as I know, none of these records are subject to embargo. Certainly, we have a number of records available at the Yorkshire Museum of Farming, mostly pertaining to the Yorkshire area. So a little bit out of your neck of the woods, but it's highly likely.
Know where they went then, really, haven't you? Yeah.
Either where they went or where they were recruited. So let's say, for example, you know you've got a relative who from Lichfield who joined the Land Army. then it should be possible to drill back into the records and find something out there. You strike gold when you are able to find the records of your county organizer or your regional or area organizer, because that very often will give you the colour, the narrative behind a straightforward.
So archive people might know then, really. Yeah.
Yep. There is a wonderful resource for people who are interested in the Land Army, which is the Women's Land Army website, which is run by a splendid lady with the wonderful name Cherish Wotton, who is a character in herself, as you can probably imagine. And there is an increasing amount of stuff which is being digitized and going on there. So that's a very good place to start.
Could you just repeat that, Mike?
Yes, the Women's Land Army. I'll just see if I can get the website address up. Yeah, there's a Women's Land Army website, which is run by a lady called Cherish Wotton. And we'll see if I can get and send it out as a message around everybody. Oh, it's quite simply womenslandarmy.co.uk.
Mike, can I, Chris?
Yeah, Sheila?
Yeah, there is a statue, a statue at the Alworth Memorial Arboretum now to the Land Army girls.
There is indeed, yeah.
Yeah, when was that there? When was, because it must have been quite recently.
It was very, very recently. I think it's 7 Land Girls on a 5-bar gate is what it's called, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And, the lady that I did a talk with, who's Iris Newbold, actually went down to the Arboretum to unveil it. And I think it's certainly within the last 10 years that it's been put up. I found myself after this last year losing track of time. I have no idea. Things were.
I think we're all doing that, Mike.
Yeah, it's this wonderful was. I heard somebody talking about that month last year, Maytober. Yeah,
That's a good one.
yeah. I know exactly what they mean. I know exactly what they mean. Yes, I've just called up. I've put round everybody a message with the website link on for the womenslandarmy.co.uk. Yeah. And there is a wealth of information on there, and that is a very good place for sharing stories and also perhaps getting a toehold into places. There's a lot of stuff out there still which hasn't been digitized. You know, for example, at our museum, there's a lot of stuff which hasn't been digitized yet and made available. And it's back to that old thing, that immensely enjoyable thing of going and ferreting through archives and libraries to see what gems you can find.
It's the personal recollections of people who were in the Land Army that I found really interesting.
Well, we do have a collection of interviews with Land Girls from which that video was put together. We've got many hours of that, which was collected by a National Lottery funded project in 2015. And at the moment, when we can, we'll be doing work to transcribe and publish those via our new website. But so
that'll be online in due course.
In due course, whenever due course may be.
Yeah.
Next Maytober.
Yes.
Is there any material down at the Imperial War Museum?
There is, I believe, but exactly what that is, I don't know. I mean, it's always a good place to start and to really get start ferreting into that. There is ferreting to do.
Yeah.
And a good place to start, once again, I would say, is definitely the Women's Land Army .co.uk.
How do the children come into your museum react when they see this?
Well, it always exactly the way I want them to, which is with lots of questions and observations and interest and noise, and I love that. You know, I consider myself very, very privileged to. We work with about 20,000 kids a year when they're allowed to come. Not all doing this; they do a variety of things. I will show you some of the classrooms that we have available. That's our Roman fort. That's the inside of our Viking longhouse. That's our prehistoric village. That's back out. Sorry, you've got my floating head. Woo.
I was going to say that's a bit disconcerting. That is.
That's outside our Viking village again, and this is inside our part of the museum. That's at the start of the Women's Land Army 1940s gallery. Go back to that again. Back to normal, and I'm still disconcerting. So it's great. One of the things that we do is we run these Life on the Home Front Living History Days, led by a couple of our members of staff, of whom I'm usually one. One is the evacuation coordinator from the WVS. The other is the ARP warden. And I say that's usually me. And the kids come and they arrive as evacuees, and we give them an experience of the day. We talk to them about air raid drill. They do an air raid drill, cooking on a ration. We work through the day. They're with us from 10 till 3. And we usually finish off with that little video, which shows a lot of the things that we've been doing and talking about. So they see the fashions, they see the hairstyles, they see the work that people are doing, and it just draws things together very, very nicely. And they're very popular days. Popular days indeed.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. It's what I get out of bed for. And I'm really missing it. I really, really seriously miss it at the moment, and I can't wait to get back to doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It goes back to this thing of what I was saying earlier on. It's one of my passions, really, that we are involved in sharing and preserving stories about people's lives, their experiences, because people are important and it matters, and we are not getting a chance to do what we are doing. And I commend you for just getting together as a group now and saying, right, we can't do that, so let's do this instead.
Yeah.
Let's share these stories and let's bounce off each other's energy, and let's just get stuck into these things. And it might just be what did somebody do in a certain place at a certain time, but you're taking that story, you're doing something with it, you're preserving it, you are passing it on. And more than anything, we are just not doing nothing. Sorry, I'm on my tub thumping thing. I'll put a voice in for independent museums, your small local museums as well. I mean, I think you will know this already, but that doesn't excuse me from saying it. It's a dreadful, terrible, terrible time for museums at the moment, and a lot of little independent museums are clinging on by their fingertips. We are a little more fortunate than most. So, your local museums, please, please, please go and support them. Find out what they're doing. Just cross the threshold when you get a chance. We're going to lose a lot of museums.
I don't suppose I'm alone in thinking that as soon as we can, we will flood places like that, because
Absolutely.
we'll be fine. Anyway, hopefully that will be fairly soon.
Hope so.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, yeah. Good.
Any more questions, anybody? I don't want to stop anybody who's got something burning. Well, can I, on your behalf, thank Mike ever so much. He's been very patient with me. I don't think I've messed it up this time like I did with our practice with Keith. So hopefully all's gone well. I think I've recorded it, so we'll try and get it out onto the website for a limited period of time, so that those who've not been able to see it live will be able to see it later on. You'll probably have to wait a few days for that to happen, but I'll do my best on that. But can we give a round of applause to Mike? Can we all manage that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Very good. Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
I almost certainly would not have had a chance to come down to Lichfield to do this in person. So it's a real, it's a real bonus to, just spend a Monday evening just chatting with people.
Yeah, lovely.
So thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Take
you.
it easy going home in the snow.
Absolutely. The kettle's a lot closer.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Cheers.
everybody.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye.
Thank you for your
Bye.
hospitality. Thank you very much.
Bye.